May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us forgiveness and mercy. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the shafa'ah, intercession of the Ahlul Bayt, of the Prophet and his family. And may Allah resurrect us on the day that يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ, the day that everyone will be called with the Imam, with the leader of their time, inshallah, to be resurrected with the Imam of our time, with the salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا بداية له، والدائم الذي لا نفاد له، والأول الذي لا أول لأوليته، والآخر الذي لا مؤخر لآخريته. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وحبيبه، حافظ سره ومبلغ رسالاته، حبيب الله العالمين وخاتم النبيين، العبد المؤيد والرسول المصدد، المصطفى الأمجد، أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الهداة المهديين، سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين، واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أعداء الله أجمعين من الآن إلى لقاء يوم الدين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: ومن الناس من يعبد الله على حرف، فإن أصابه خير اطمأن به، وإن أصابته فتنة انقلب على وجهه، خسر الدنيا والآخرة، ذلك هو الخسران المبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate our hearts by the light of Iman and guidance, and the mahabba and the love of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleanse our hearts from corruption, deviance and hypocrisy with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Indeed, providing for our families, to train, educate ourselves, and ultimately develop certain form of skills in order to have a career, have a profession, it is a major part of our lives. When you look at our schedule on a daily basis, we cannot deny that most amount of time that we are investing is to our livelihood, to our ma'ash, is to find ways to provide for our families, to take care of the needs, the essentials for ourselves and our families. And that's why rizq and sustenance is one of the important aspects of our lives that we believe is measured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yesterday, with the time that we had, using the verses of the Quran as well as the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, we discussed that how important it is to understand that our provision, our sustenance is measured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the provider. He is the sustainer. And we are constantly dependent on this source. But the question that comes to mind is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of our rizq, what's the point of us running after our rizq? What's the point of us trying to adapt to our time, to develop new sets of skills? MashaAllah, the young people, all of them are now looks for side hustles. Yeah, they have a main job and now they're finding a way to have new, they call it other forms of income, right? Passive form of incomes. So what's the point of that? Are we doing the right thing or no? We should trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we talked about Surah Al-Talaq and why this topic is critical and important. A good number of people, one of the main reasons they move from one state to another, even those who move from one country to another, is because of their jobs, is in order to have a better when it comes to amenities, income, perks, and benefits that they receive. So sometimes this sense of guilt comes that, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right decision for me and my family? Am I the talib ad-dunya? I'm a seeker of this dunya and the pleasure of this dunya. Am I corrupting my soul? Am I putting my family at risk? And the point was, how can we find and seek this balance? And in Surah Al-Talaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that we must place our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sheikh Hurr Amil in Wasa'il al-Shia, under this ayah, it has this riwayah, this narration, that after these verses were revealed, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, which basically Allah is guaranteeing a stream of blessing, sustenance coming to the people who maintain taqwa, who those who are God-fearing, Allah will provide for them. After the revelation of these verses, we have a group of companions of the Prophet, they shut down their businesses. They stopped working. And when Rasulullah and the Messenger of God asked them, they said yes, since the revelation of these verses, they decide to spend all their time for ibadah, for worship. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَيَرْزُقْهُم مِّنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. If you have taqwa, Allah will provide you from a place, from a source that you don't even expect. So they're saying, if that's the promise of Allah, why we should wake up early, go open the business. We do all these efforts for the measurement that Allah already planned for us, for a rizq that Allah already measured for us. And we have that Rasulullah summoned them, and they were gathered. And then Rasulullah looked at them and said, O people, alaykum bit-talab. Your responsibility is to seek and attain that rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala measured for you. This idea that Allah has a plan for us is without a doubt a truth. But yesterday, most amount of my time was to explain and elaborate that Allah's design is not the way we assume. Allah does not work the way we expect. We do not dictate the laws of the existence and universe to Allah. It's the other way around. He is the one, anzil. Anzalnahu is coming from above, this descendants from Allah to us. Some people, they try to do it the other way around. They say this is what probably Allah wanted to say. They try to project their thoughts and their desires to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the system of rizq, in the system of provision and sustenance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, yes, I measured your rizq. I allocated for you this provision. But I also require you to seek, to strive, to work and put efforts in order to attain it. And that's not only about rizq, everything in existence when you look at it. When we are looking at a farmer, potentially the land has ability to grow crops. But in order to make it possible, a farmer has to do its work. We cannot say the sun is there, the water is here. Still the process has to take place in order for a farm to give us the result and the harvest that we're looking for. Same as when we're asking Allah for family. Although I know some brothers are asking Allah for angels to descend upon them, the process is that you have to seek. You have to go and look and search to find the right person. Yes, you ask Allah, the dua, Rabbana hab lana min azwajina wa dhurriyatina qurrat a'yun. We're asking Allah to bless us with such families who are the light of our eyes. But the means still is necessary. The steps to take on our end has to be done. That's why Quran said, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. If there is one principle I want us to understand on this night, is because sometimes we use a religious concept, a religious phenomena, in order to justify an irreligious act. And that is the worst case of twisting the religion. When somebody is lazy and said, you know, I'm trusting in Allah. I've seen young men with a lot of potential, young sisters with a lot of potential, and you see that they're wasting their lives. It's good to be chill. It's good to be, take things slow. It's fine to have, gap here and there. But mashallah, some people, they have a decade gap, not a year, not a gap here, a gap decade. And when you ask him, what are you doing? He said, whatever Allah plans for me, that will be the case. What am I doing this? Why should I, do too much? This is somebody using religion to justify what religion warns us about, and that is kasal. Iyaka wal kasal. The teacher of Ahlul Bayt said, I'm warning you about laziness. For you to be idle. For you to say, I'm waiting for others to do the job and then for me to just come and get the result. Iyaka. I ask Allah, Ya Allah, protect my children. It's Akhir al-Zaman, it's end of time, there's many fitna issues. Ya Allah, protect them. What am I doing? Sending them to public school, let them assimilate, let them hang out with whoever they like, they will find a way. I made the dua. Where's the effort for you to do anything in order to maintain the tarbiyah of your children? Sheikh, I made the dua. I made sure before they left the house, I recited Ayatul Kursi for them. This mindset is a mindset who did not understand religion. We had the COVID, not very long ago, right? The COVID era. And we know there are all the controversies about it. Aside from all the controversies surrounding it, there was one issue. And that was those people who tried to use faith and said, if Allah is the one, my life is in the hand of Allah. Why should I wear a mask? Why should I do social distancing? And this is not, again, something that was advised by a secular person. No, our doctors, our community members said do it. Our ulama and scholars did it. But there were those who tried to use faith to justify it. I'm using these examples to tell you and warn you that sometimes religion becomes a mean of people undermining religion. It becomes a cancer. That from within we're destroying our own faith. A religious phenomena who's not being understood well, who's being twisted, could damage our religion and our faith much worse than any secular phenomena out there. So one of those arguments was, Allah protect us. This is the Majlis of Imam Hussain. I come to the Majlis of Imam Hussain. Forget about the mask. Forget about no shake, no handshake or any of that. Allah protect us. And I remember I was telling them, said, brother, tell me, did Imam Ali alayhi salam in the battle wear an armor or not? Yes or no? In the day of Ashura in Karbala, did Imam al-Hussein Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam had armors or not? Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was watching out for them? When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the day of Ashura, they are a minority. Without a doubt, they're outnumbered by thousands. But did Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, okay, let them just come? Or when you look at the history and we study it, that Imam alayhi salam, formation of his army is to minimize the amount of damage and harm that they can get from the enemy. He set up his camp to be in an arrow shape. Then he assigned a leader for the right side of his army, Maymana. And the other is a leader for the Maysara, the left side. And then he ordered to dig trenches in the back of the camp and set fire in order for enemies not to have the advantage to attack them from behind, to hold them off guard. This is the one who knows what's Ashura, what's Karbala. He knows what's coming for him. But he's not going to die on the ground. He's not going to go without a fight. He's going to do his part. Once there's something beyond what I can do, the word of Imam is La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That we nasbir ala al-musibah. We are going to be patient. This misunderstanding is that we're going to be idle and do nothing. Even when it comes to a pandemic, when it comes to our rizq and acquiring our business and doing what is necessary for our families is the misunderstanding of faith. Sa'i and efforts is the responsibility of every believer. We have a group of companions with Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam in his house. And Imam alayhi salam was leaving his companions for a while. Multiple times Imam went back and forth with them. And they can see that Imam alayhi salam, in his face, they could detect that something is not right. Something is happening with the family. And after a while, Imam alayhi salam sat, and they saw that Imam now is peaceful. He's in that a tranquil state. So one of the companions said, Yabna Rasulullah, we don't want to impose and we don't want to ask if it's a private matter, but what's going on? Is there anything we can do? We saw that you're going back and forth. And Imam alayhi salam said, yes, one of my children was ill, was sick. So I sent for a doctor, so the doctor came to visit. We're trying. So alhamdulillah, now he's in modern language, stabilized, everything is fine. I said, no, he passed away. But you were my guest, I'm here to honor you before I go for the rest of it. And then he said this statement, إِنَّا وَنَحْنُ أَهْلُ الْبَيْتِ نَجْزَعْ قَبْلَ الْمُصِيبَةِ فَإِذَا وَقَعَ نَصْبِرْ. This is the model. This is the motto of Ahlul Bayt. That indeed we Ahlul Bayt, نَجْزَعْ قَبْلَ الْمُصِيبَةِ, before the calamity befalls, we do everything in our power to do our responsibility. If it's getting the doctor, if it's prevention, if it's precaution, whatever we can do. We're not going to sit doing nothing. If Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam is going to face the enemy, he does everything in his power to minimize the casualty, the damage. There's a strategy in the work of the Prophet when it comes to the battles of the Prophet. It's not just, let's do tawakkaltu ala Allah and let's just do it. There's a plan. What is the battle of Khandaq about? Known as Ahzab, right? Prophet consulted his companions. Should we stay in city, in Medina and fight with the enemy? Should we go outside? Everybody has a suggestion. Quran talks about that in details. Until Salman al-Farisi, known also as Salman al-Muhammadi, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he suggested that trenches, Khandaq, is the way to do it. And that suggestion was accepted, and eventually that's what they went, and known as Ahzab as Khandaq as well. That's the work that has to be done. And Prophet himself participated in digging trenches. This is the same Prophet that is mustajab with da'wah. His prayers are answered. But he's not going to sit on his hand doing nothing, be idle when he's making the dua. When it comes to our rizq is measured. But alaykum bit talab. Our responsibility is to attain that rizq. Is to seek that rizq, that sustenance that's provided for us. But the question is how to do it. Because if that's the case, what is the criticism that we have about someone who all their life, what it is their business, is their career. And that's the reality. We have people that they live, breathe, sleep, business. Everything else is a secondary matter to them. When they are at home, they're thinking about business. When they are at the center listening to Sheikh Modarres, most likely what they're thinking about business, how to maximize the profit. At the time of Salat, business. And some of them said, Sheikh, I cannot even turn it off. It's not in my control. What's the issue then? That what brings us to the issue, the core and the root of the problem is imbalance. When everything falls out of balance, when it goes to excessiveness, ifrat, when we have corruption and fasad follows after. Overeating is a form of excessiveness. It leads to problem. health problem, mental health problems. When you don't eat enough, again, another excessive practice. Those are anorexic, bulimia, body image issues. Again, another problem. Leads to some kind of disorder. Same with the sleeping, those who oversleep, those who don't sleep enough. And when it comes to our livelihood, our work, our rizq is the same concept. When balance is not maintained. Our seventh Imam, Imam ibn Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam alayhi salam said that when it comes to our time, there should be a schedule, there should be a way we allocate time for everything. اجتهدوا في أن يكون زمانكم 4 ساعات. Should be your ijtihad. This is what you should strive for. It means that it's not an easy thing. It's not easy to just say, you know what, from tomorrow, I'm going to just divide my time this way. It means it requires experimentation. It means that your time, your schedule may differ from someone else. If you're single versus if you're married. If you have children versus if you don't have children. If you are a mother, a woman versus if you're a father and a man. Meaning that you have to look at your situation and based on that strive to create a schedule that works best for you. But you have to focus on these 4 aspects in your life. The first one, Imam alayhi salam says, it's a famous tradition, probably you heard it before. Inshallah, if you did, this is a review. Sa'atun li manajatillah. We should not divide it equally, by the way. Sa'a, it doesn't mean an hour, by the way. It means time period. When you see the term sa'a, we use it in Farsi, and I think in Urdu as well, it means hour. But in Arabic, sa'a is not necessarily 60 minutes. That's why, for example, we have in the Day of Judgment, Yawm as-Sa'a, is not about 60 minutes, it's a period of time as well. So you have to allocate a time as you seem it fit and necessary for this part. One part of your day should be limunajatillah, in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter how much you want to acquire a rizq, you want to attain your livelihood, career, business, you must have a time for ibadah, for worship. Prioritizing wajib, mandatory obligation over non-mandatory. And starting with salah. Allah's work has a lot of wisdom behind it. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha. Spread out throughout the day. If you combine the salat, meaning the 3 times a day, we do 5 salat. And it's spread out throughout the day. That's the bare minimum. Time for ibadah, for munajat. That is a moment that, again, nowadays is interesting, that if you look at entrepreneurs, if you look at successful businessmen, they talk about that how this toxic environment, this competitiveness, it leads people to the edge, to the point that they're starting harming their health. They have mental health issues, they have this fatigue, constant fatigue, anxiety, stress. So one solution that they offer is what? I've heard it from millionaires, from businessmen, from tech gurus that they try to advise people. Start your day with what? Meditation. It's a good idea. And mashallah, you see people, especially young people, react to this as if this is a revolutionary matter. They just came up with this. When our faith been telling us this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and meditation is about emptying your mind of thoughts, and I don't claim that I know meditation, but when I actually look into it, a lot of it is actually about not thinking. And ibadah is about thinking, not about yourself, about something that is beyond you. Ibadah means connect to the source, to the creator. Slowing down is one of the advices of the people. That we are living in such a fast-paced society and business world and career that you need to slow down. So sa'atun li munajatillah, number 1, Imam says. We should have time for that. Allocate a time for your salat. Don't let anything come between you and your salat. If Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, in the midst of battle, with all the planning and the strategy, he stops the battle for salat. It has to teach us something. Second part of the time, Imam says, وَسَاعَةٌ لِأَمْرِ الْمَعَاشِ. You must have, this is related to our topic of rizq. Imam said the second part of your time should be for the matter how to provide and maintain your livelihood. Amr al-ma'ash. Ma'isha is livelihood. Meaning that you should find a way to provide your family. You're either a doctor, you're an engineer, you're a teacher, whatever that is. You know your skill, you train, you get good at it, and eventually you find a halal, lawful way of providing for your family. In the time of Prophet, we have a young man who would not that often to the masjid. When we say that often, we're not talking about coming to just a weekend program. At the time, they used to go for all the salat, they go to the mosque. So this young man was not able to come to all the salat. Very, very bright man, very talented. And some of the Muslims start to indirectly criticize him when Prophet was present. And one of the comments that they were making is that, such a waste that is. That this young man with all this potential, and instead of investing his time for ibadah and worship, all he does is business. All he does is doing work. He's busy with work. And then Rasulullah is the one responded to these companions who was criticizing him. He said, if the reason he's doing all this, he has his work, he has his source of income, his livelihood, is because he doesn't want to be dependent on others. He doesn't want to be someone who extends his hands to others and ask for handouts. Then his business, his seeking rizq, is an act of worship. Because Allah does not like those who are dependent on others. In our faith, we're being discouraged from asking for loans if we can live without it. Forget about charity and sadaqah. We have many ahadith and tradition warning us about this. If a faqir, a poor person came to you, a needy person came to you, please do not lecture them that you should not ask. They come to that point on their own term, they put their integrity, their honor aside, and they ask you for help. So either help them or qawlun ma'ruf, at least say a good comment to them. Refuse with honor, with grace. Do not mock them. Do not say that the reason they're poor is because of their mistakes of the past. They should have. Do not lecture somebody who's asking you for help. That's not the time. That's not the place. Either help. If you cannot help, gracefully say, I can't. But from the point of view of ourselves, live a life that if it's not necessary to the point that, God forbid, your survival is depending on it, do not ask for help from others. Yes, it's a good idea if I have a newer car, but in order to get a newer car, it means I have to ask for a loan. But I can survive without it. This car works well. It's not perfect. It's better to go with the second choice. So Prophet said if the reason he's busy with work is to not ask others for a handout and not to be dependent on others, that's fine. And by the way, this dependency doesn't mean, again, let's say a man's job is to provide for his wife and his family. That dependency is not the same. That's a responsibility of the husband and the father to provide for his family. So don't think that, you should not be dependent on your husband or your father. That's the way. That's the design of Allah's work. It's their responsibility. And they cannot place minna. They cannot say, I did you a favor by that. They're fulfilling their duties. But from aspect of a community and a strangers, they're not responsible for us. And the Prophet said if the reason he does and he's expanding his work and business is to provide for his family to live a comfortable life, so they don't depend on others. Still this is ibadah. Still this is worship. I want my family to have a better access to blessings, a bigger house, a more comfortable environment. And that's fine. If that's the intention, you provide for your family. Our Prophet said, among the worst of men, my dear brothers, you have to listen to this. Among the worst, sharrur rijal, among the worst of men, Prophet said, is a man who's a stingy, a man who's so tight when it comes to financial, that his family is looking at others' hand for what they have. Meaning you push your family to the point that they cannot count on you, now they're looking for other sources to get what they need. You can call it qina'ah, you can label it as being content, but that's not the way. That's why there's a concept of sha'an. When you live in this society, you cannot say we're going to live according to the standards of Najaf. This is not possible. If you're in California, good luck if you want to survive on public transportation. So you cannot demand and expect such a life. And you providing for them, it doesn't make them expect too much or luxury life. Sometimes it's the bare minimum. Yeah, compare with the Najaf. If you're driving a Honda here, mashallah, you're in Najaf. If you have a Honda, is a different story. In Qum, yeah, you will be labeled as things that we cannot talk of it. But we're living at a different time. That doesn't apply. That's not the sha'an, and that's fine. The wisdom is necessary here. And then Prophet said there's a third scenario. First scenario, he does it for himself, to provide for himself. The second is he wants to provide for his family. Either way, this is an act of worship. This is ibadah. You cannot criticize him. The only form that you can criticize someone, and you look down about that action, is that if he does all this business, expanding his business, to showboat, to brag, to say, I'm better than you, to go in front of the people who are less fortunate and kind of express that, okay, I'm doing better than you, I'm successful, somehow boast about his success. If that's the intention of him, is spending this much time in business, then this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will approve of. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرْ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. Sometimes the intention of wealth is not that providing for yourself or family, is just to accumulate wealth in order to have influence, to brag about it. So then our seventh Imam alayhi salam said, that's the second part. So one part for munajat, one part for business, one part for amr al-ma'ash, to provide for your family. When I say business, again, that's again a loose term. Amr al-ma'ash means find a way to provide for yourself and your family. Make sure it's halal and lawful, and then go for it. The third one, Imam alayhi salam says, وَسَاعَةٌ لِمُعَاشَرَةِ الْإِخْوَانِ. The third part of your time has to be a time that you spend with your brethren. Meaning you have time to socialize. We're social creatures, we cannot survive on our own. Although that we try to just build our houses, bigger backyards, bigger TVs, and try to entertain ourselves. But the reality, one thing that COVID taught us is how much we take things for granted. I was amazed by people who rarely showed up at the center calling me during the COVID. Do we have in-person program? Because we are taking it for granted. Okay, we come, we sit down, we have, majlis together, we have food together. This is something essential. We're living at the time that depression is on the rise among the young people as well as among the elders. And one of the greatest factors involved when it comes to depression is loneliness. I was looking at some of the studies, more than 40% in some cases, more than 30% of people reported that they feel alone. And you say, yeah, they don't have that connection with Allah because huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. But yes, regardless of that connection with Allah, we need human connection as well. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. We need this brotherhood, we need this sisterhood. So Imam said also have a time to socialize. But socialize not with every kind of person, ikhwan. With those who actually, they're worth your time, not toxic people. Not those who they put you down in order to make themselves feel better. Not for those that all they talk about is complaining. A brother is the one who cares for you and also advise you when it's necessary. That's a real brother. They're with you in the ups and downs. Find the right people. It's difficult, but look for them. They're gems that they have to be found. And then the fourth time, Imam alayhi salam said the fourth part has to be, and again, there's a continuation. وَالثُّقَاتِ الَّذِينَ يُعَرِّفُونَكُمْ عُيُوبَكُمْ. The type of brothers that they are thiqat, meaning they're trustworthy. They're reliable. They will not stab you in the back. They're not there with you because of your success. And when it's necessary, they will tell you of your flaw. They will help you to build yourself a better person, a better version of yourself. وَيُخَلِّصُونَ لَكُمْ فِي الْبَاطِنِ. And in their hearts, in their batin, in the inner aspect of their existence, they're sincere with you. Meaning they're not hypocrites. It's not the one that when they see you, I love you, I miss you, long time no see, and behind your back, God forbid, they have all the negative thing that they have to say. They are khalis, they're sincere with you. And then the fourth one was sa'atun. Imam alayhi salam says, وَسَاعَةٌ تَخْلُونَ فِيهَا لِلَذَّاتِكُمْ فِي غَيْرِ مُحَرَّمٍ وَبِهَذِهِ السَّاعَةِ تَقْدِرُونَ عَلَى الثَّلَاثِ سَاعَاتٍ. And the fourth time has to be for halal leisure, halal pleasures, lawful ways to rest. That means sleeping, that means to take care of your hygiene, that means have hobbies, exercise, whatever that is. Lawful ladhat, pleasures. To have pleasures, to have hobbies is nothing problematic in our faith. To have unlawful pleasures, corrupt way of having entertainment, that's what Islam warned us and said, okay, you think this is fun, you think this is entertaining you, but it has side effect. You try to fix a problem, you create other problems. So try to find those who don't have the side effect. And said when you have this fourth part in your life, there are a moment for you to rejuvenate. They are providing this ability for you to have the strength for the other three, for the munajat, for the worship, for the livelihood and business and work and career, and when it comes to socializing. If you have the fourth part right, then you have energy and you're rested enough for the other. So why this hadith is critical? Because there is speak of balance. To ijtahidu, that's jihad, that's a struggle that we have to try to find that balance. Modify your schedule, work around it. If you're someone in school and college, your schedule should look different from someone who has a full-time job. Your level of socializing as a single person is different from someone who's married. Let people judge you for it, but once you're married and you have a family, part of your socialization should be with family. It's not that suddenly you don't need your friends. You need them. Regardless if you have family and kids, you still need good brothers. You need good sisters. Mothers need good friends and fathers need good friends. Otherwise, if your spouse doesn't have friends, you will pay the price for it. I promise you. They will annoy you, I promise you. Sometimes you need that your spouse have a time for someone beside you. For those, mashallah, we live at the time of social media, people say, my best friend is my husband. Rarely is the case, but some say. It's fine to have that connection, but they cannot replace your friends. They cannot be enough for you. Because the type of relationship you have with your spouse is not the same as a friend. We mistaken that if I have a connection, then I have to disown, I have to disconnect. But what it is, we have to adjust. I'm married now. It means my schedule looks different. My priorities is different. It's not you give up on your friends, not that you disconnect, but you adjust. When it comes to the rizq, it's the same concept. You were single, you didn't need a lot of money, it was fine. Now you're married, now you have children. So it means as a provider of the house, as a husband, as a father, you need to find a way. When Allah said, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, the men are the one that their family can rely on, lean on to. It comes with pros and cons. Yes? There are some pros to it and there's some cons to it. And the con that people don't like to hear, that when you're a man, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of stress for providing for your family. That's why in our faith, when a man goes out there to provide for his family, that action is rewarding. Al-kaddu ala ayalik al-mujahid fi sabilillah. But also the mother who's providing for her family in her way, in her capacity. Even if his offering is not her responsibility, but we have a narration, if a wife offer a cup of water to their family, that is equivalent of Hajj or Umrah, an Umrah reward for it. Because effort matters in our faith. Al-ibada lahu sab'ina ajza, the hadith said. That worship has 70 components. 70. Afdaluha, the most prime, the most valuable part of it is rizqul halal. There's all these there's salat, there's sawm, there's sadaqah, all different acts of worship and ibadat. And one act of worship is to provide halal income, halal rizq. Acquiring that is the afdal, is the most prime and valuable one. So the balance has to be there when it comes to our business. But one question that comes to mind, which is again a very important question, and I've finished with that, is that in this process of finding the balance, what should we avoid? What are some warnings that we have to be aware of? I recited one ayah last night. I didn't get to elaborating on that ayah, but it's an important ayah because of course all the Quran is light and nur, but some verses in our time has more application. Ayah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ. Do not extend your glance. This is Allah asking the Prophet, Muslims and all of us, is about when we look at other things. And the ayah is to do not look. And there is a very delicate lesson here. La tamuddanna aynak. Tamuddanna is when we look at something, this glance, it takes a while. Sometimes you accidentally, it's a glance, you look at it and you just move on. But sometimes you look at something and you start staring at it and you reflect. So Allah here said, do not focus that much. Do not extend your glance. Do not make it a long one. If accidentally you saw something, move on. It happens. Even if there's haram and accidentally you see it, as long as you move on, you're fine. But if you saw the haram and you keep looking at it, then it's not permissible anymore. So what should we not look at here that is related to rizq and related to our provision, the sustenance, is that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا. When it comes to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless others with. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided for others. Do not extend your glance toward that we have provided certain groups of them. Referring to the non-Muslim, referring to the kuffar. Why this ayah was revealed? Because there were some Muslim who come to Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, we are believers. We believe in one God. We believe in as a messenger of God. We do all the sacrifices. And then we look at them. They have children. Even our Prophet was labeled as abtar, slander, and they try to verbally abuse him. They said, if God really loved you, why you don't have any children? Why your son dies? They looked down at him. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Let them say, let them judge you based on their standards because you don't have sons, they think you don't have it. We gave you something that's more than any son. We gave you kawthar, that abundant source of khair and good, which is Fatimatu Zahra. And now we know, 1400 years after that, which name, which legacy survived. Is Abu Jahl and his 10 sons has any remnant in history? Or Sadat, the Sayyid, even Sunnis have Sayyid according to their, and they're proud to call themselves that they're from the descendant of Fatima. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke for himself. But this ayah came ولا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم. What Allah gave them from family, from children, from wealth, stop looking at them. زهرة الحياة الدنيا. All of this is a glitter of this life. Zahra, it talks about the blossom, the small flower, meaning something that if you look at the blossom stage, is not that long. Just quickly move on, the flower fully blossoms, and then eventually is gone. So this is what this dunya is. It's not that long lasting. Let them be happy, let them rejoice for this temporary transitionary enjoyment that they have. لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ بِهِ. This is how we test them. This is a test for them. The more you have, the more the test it is. وَرِزْقُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. And remember, what Allah provides for you is better for you and more lasting, long lasting. One issue that a lot of people struggle with is when we ask Allah for something where Allah didn't answer. Where is Allah in this? They ask us to do dua, they ask us to ask Allah for help, I want this, I want that, and then there's no response. And the answer of that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Udu'uni astajib lakum. Call me. Some people think that Allah said, give me a list of demand, and I'm here, a genie, to fulfill every desire you have. Allah said, call me, I'll answer you. One analogy that I usually give is, if your child asks you, Daddy, Mom, give me the knife, I want to play with the knife. A 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, would you hand the knife? I love you so much, ask for whatever you want, my son. My daughter, what did you ask for? A wise parent will not give you a knife, will not give that child a knife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has that knowledge that a lot of things that we ask for is not for our khair. Maybe that time is not the right time. Trusting that what is khair for us is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power. We strive to get to what we can, we seek the rizq. But if I tried everything, then I don't have to cut corners, I don't have to do shady business in order to make more. Trust, I do everything in my power. That's why after Salatul Isha, Ta'qibat, the prayer that we recite, what is it? It's from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, right? It's a beautiful dua for reflection. Read it with translation. Young people, when you read du'as, please read the translation. Do not let our dua and our recitation become just reciting something that we don't know what it means. We do not have spells like, the magic books and all that. It's actually meant to be reflected upon. And that understanding gives you tranquility. We say the word of Imam alayhi salam, Allahumma innahu laysa li ilmun bimawda'i rizqi. Ya Allah, I do not have the knowledge to know exactly where my rizq, where my provision is. I do not have that knowledge. It could be in Austin, it could be somewhere else. Allah knows. وَإِنَّمَا أَطْلُبُهُ بِخَطَرَاتٍ تَخْطُرْ عَلَى قَلْبِي. But I'm seeking it. You asked me to go. Your messenger told me that I have to look after. I have to seek it. And I'm doing it. بِخَطَرَاتٍ تَخْطُرْ عَلَى. All these concern, all these worries that my heart has, I'm trying to find anxiety or to concern, the stress to get to my rizq. فَأَجُولُ فِي طَلَبِهِ الْبُلْدَانِ. I'm in rush from one city to another. People in Austin usually know that, right? From this place to another, from one job to another, from one LinkedIn bio to another. فَأَجُولُ فِي طَلَبِهِ الْبُلْدَانِ فَأَنَا فِيمَا أَنَا طَالِبٌ كَالْحَيْرَانِ. I'm a mystified seeker. I'm a confused, puzzled seeker. لَا أَدْرِيَ فِي سَهْلٍ هُوَ أَمْ فِي جَبَلٍ. I don't know where my rizq is. Is it on the land? Is it on the mountain? Is it on the sea? Where is it? On the plains? أم في بحر أم في سماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من. Who is the one who is holding my rizq? Which boss? Which company? Is it my company? Is it entrepreneurship? Who has my rizq? Where is it coming from? وَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ أَنَّ عِلْمَهُ عِنْدَكَ. But what I know is that you have the knowledge of that. وَأَسْبَابَهُ بِيَدِكَ. The means of my rizq is in your hand. وَأَنْتَ الَّذِي تَقْسِمُهُ بِلُطْفِكَ. And you're the one who distributing it because of your mercy. That admission is that I do seek it, but I still trust that you're not going to abandon me. Once I have that peace of mind in the back of my mind, these anxieties that shaitan ya'idukum al-faqr. Shaitan promises you will be poor. Don't give sadaqah. What if you need it tomorrow? They have no evidence to prove it that you owe them. Don't give them. What if you need it? Is promising poverty, is scaring us of poverty. But the one who understands, I do my efforts and I trust the one who provides. He will provide what I need, what I'm depending on, then that tranquility happens. Then you do business without stress. You open the business, you go to your work, you develop your skills, knowing that you do your part because Allah told you. That's the system. I do my part, I take one step, Allah will take 100 steps toward me. And that's what the work of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is. That's what the conviction of the Ahlul Bayt of Imam al-Hussein comes from. Let's finish with that. How Sayyida Zainab Salamullah alayha went through all the calamities of the day of Ashura. And then on the evening, on the night time, Imam Zain al-Abidin said, my aunt Zainab did not miss her Salatul Layl. She was not able to stand on her feet. Why she was not able to stand? Probably because the entire day she was running from one burning tent to another, carrying Zain al-Abidin out of the burning tent, protecting the orphans, making her body to be the shield between the whips of the enemies of Ahlul Bayt and the bodies of children. Now is night time and Zainab stands up for Salat. Because this is a moment for Zainab to recharge, to get the strength, to know that this journey is still, a lot is left of this calamity and this musibah. On the night of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein was reciting poetries, as he was sharpening his sword, that the meaning of the poetry was, O dunya, woe upon you, that you are very disloyal, that I can see shahadat, I can see death approaching me, and how you treated the awliya, the friends of Allah. Zainab heard the word of her brother, and she began crying and said, Oh my dear brother Hussein, are you talking of your death? Are you telling me that tomorrow I'll see your death? And as she was crying and weeping, Imam alayhi salam said, my dear sister Zainab, don't let shaitan take your sabr and patience. And my dear sister Zainab, do not cry. It's too early for crying. It will be a time for you to cry. It will be a time for you to mourn for me, but this is not the time. And now Zainab remembers the word of Hussein alayhi salam on the evening of the day of Ashura. And along the journey to Kufa and Sham, that when she faced Ibn Ziyad and she faced the abuse of the Ibn Ziyad and Ibn Marjana, what she said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. How can you say such a word, that I saw nothing but beauty? Is it anything beside that Zainab is believing in the promise of Allah? That Allah said, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ. Do not consider those who are slain in the way of Allah as dead, but بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ. Indeed they are living. And Zainab believes in that. But there was a moment when this Zainab returned to the city of Medina, and this time when Zainab left the city of Medina, she had Hussein by her side, she had Abu al-Fadl Abbas, she had Ali al-Akbar. All these maharim were around Zainab. Then when she wanted to dismount the camel, all of the maharim will come around Zainab. That the strangers, they have, a barrier between the strangers and Zainab. But now that she is returning to Medina, there is no Hussein or Abbas, there is no Ali al-Akbar or Qasim. We have that Abdullah ibn Ja'far came and he's looking for Zainab and said, do you know where Zainab, the daughter of Ali, is? They pointed that Zainab is coming at the end of the caravan. Zainab is making sure no one is going to leave behind. Yes, there is Ruqayya in the city of Sham, but no one else is going to remain behind. We have that everybody pointed that she is coming at the end of the caravan. Abdullah ibn Ja'far arrived and she saw this woman who is that seemed very old, and he looked at him and said, oh dear woman, oh mother, tell me, have you known that where is Zainab? Do you know where Zainab is? And we have that the woman responded, oh Abdullah, you should not recognize Zainab, as you have the right not to know who your wife is, because when Zainab left, her hair would not turn into gray. When Zainab left, her nose was not broken. When Zainab left the city of Medina, her back was not broken. You came to the time that Zainab saw many calamities. وعلى لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Ya Allah, by the honor of Zainab al-Kubra salamullah alayha, by the honor of Imam al-Hussein and his companion and his family, hasten in the reappearance of Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Help us to be among the true awaiters, the true followers of the Imam of our time. Ya Allah, grant us the tawfiq of participating in the majalis of Ahlul Bayt, in the majalis who are reviving the message of Ahlul Bayt, to learn from them and inshallah to implement and to follow and practice the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt in our lives. Ya Allah, all those who are mareed, all those who are in need of our du'as, grant them strength of iman, grant them sabr and patience, and Ya Allah, grant them immediate relief as soon as possible. Ya Allah, we pray for all the Madhlimeen, all the oppressed of the world, especially for the urgent need of the Madhlimeen and the oppressed of Palestine and Gaza. Ya Allah, bring immediate relief for them and grant them their liberation and their freedom. Ya Allah, we pray for the honor of the Imam of our time. Bless the soul of all of our marhumin and marhumin of the participants, the sponsors and the volunteers, and Ya Allah, grant them maghfirah and forgiveness. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات رحم الله لمن قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين